Ugh, yuck. There's no way I'm eating that. Ugh, not in 1,000 years. Ugh.
Hello everyone, so I know it's 2023 or something and y'all probably don't remember, but there used to be this awesome comic strip called Popeye, the Sailor Man. And you've been missing out. Created by LZ Chrysler Segar way back in 1929, Popeye was this tough sailor dude with big chunky arms who ate spinach, and it made him even stronger somehow. Strong enough at least to take on his arch nemesis Bluto, who was always trying to get his hands on Popeye's girl, Olive Oil, in wackier and wackier ways. How do I put this for the Zoomers? It's kind of like Mario, Peach, and Bowser with spinach instead of mushrooms. Yeah. It's the excellent cartoons by Fleischer Studios from the 1930s that most of us remember, I think. They were so full of charm and weirdness, you couldn't help but smile watching them. Quite simply, pure joy in a can. Unlike... you know. Anyway, the character popped up in various ways over the years, on the radio, in video games, in a cancelled CG animated feature which looked amazing but never got made, and in a Robert Altman feature film from 1980, which is the topic of this video. See what I did? I just brought us back to the present. Bam, just like that. Look, I don't want to be a dick or anything, but if you're enjoying this video and you want to leave a like on it, I won't be mad about that. Anyway, Popeye. What can I say about this movie? This movie was not a big hit upon its release. In fact, critics were pretty much trashing it when it came out. It took years and years for people to start appreciating it more. I remember seeing the trailer for this movie on like an old Disney VHS and thinking it looked incredible. I don't think I watched it until way later, and when I did, it didn't quite click for me how good this movie was until relatively recently when I rewatched it again. Sometimes films are like that, you know? Sometimes good films, blow you away the first time you watch them. Sometimes it takes a little time, which is why watching a film in a darkened theater is still, for me, the best way to take in everything it's trying to get across. No distractions, plenty of space in front of you to truly enjoy every single little detail. The film starred Robin Williams as Popeye and Shelley Duvall as the love of his life, Olive Oil. And I mean, right off the bat, just look at them. How perfect are they? Round of applause for casting, right? I mean, come on. How good is this? Although, part of me kind of wants to go to a parallel universe to see the original casting choices Dustin Hoffman and Lily Tomlin take on these roles. It would have been so weird though, right? I feel like this universe kind of nailed it. Let's be real. Live-action adaptations of comic strips or cartoons are usually hit and miss because there's no real rule on how to do it. You just kind of have to pick a style, try your hardest to capture the whole vibe of the cartoon, and hope for the best. Whether it's Mr. Magoo or Inspector Gadget or Rocky and Bullwinkle, Hollywood tries to get a good adaptation out there once in a while, but it rarely sticks. Even The Flintstones is still seen as a bad film despite the fact it's The Flintstones. I really don't know what people were expecting with that one. It's literally The Flintstones. It's great. Maybe we'll dive into that one at some point. Let me know in the comments if you'd like to see that video. But when it comes to this movie, the truth is, people back in the 80s and even still today, most people don't really get it. And there's a reason for that, a very good reason. This movie's kind of a hot mess. Look, I love this freaking movie. I think it's perfect. But it's also kind of all over the place, let's be honest. The pacing of the film is very slow initially. There's a ton of stuff going on, and yet it's not easy to hang on to the narrative or the characters at all. Popeye is this wandering, mumbly weirdo. Some of the songs aren't even sung, they're muttered. It's funny, but it's often too cluttered to really catch the jokes, except for the slapstick. The production for this one, when you're watching the movie, feels like it was probably crazy. And, it was. The sound is grungy, for lack of a better word, with lots of dialogue, especially from Robin Williams, added in later onto the footage, sometimes making the songs feel grungy themselves. Everything seems shot from far away and then zoomed in for some reason, giving the film a potentially off-putting look. The movie's got issues, okay? So when someone comes up to me and they tell me, look, I watched it, I still don't get it, I fell asleep, after the first few scenes, I totally get it. It's not you. It's not your fault. It's Popeye. And yet, I probably wouldn't change a thing about this movie. It's perfect. Perfect! Alright, let's dive into it. What is this movie? In a nutshell, this movie is about Popeye, this lonely sailor who finds himself in this weird little town called Sweet Haven, where he hopes to be reunited with his long-lost father. He meets Olive Oyl, who is meant to be with the intimidating force of nature Bluto, and soon a baby is left on their doorstep, which complicates things even more. That's roughly it, but the story takes its sweet time to kick in, which is why I think it will alienate some viewers. So if you're gonna watch this movie, keep this in mind, you gotta stick with it. And you gotta think as you're watching it about what the hell is this movie doing? Why is it like that? My take on it is that this movie really loves Popeye, and it knows we love Popeye, and by God it's gonna give us what we want, but on its own terms, because as the movie jokes right off the bat, this isn't the cartoon, this is Popeye the movie. We're gonna give this two-dimensional sailor a third dimension, and by the end you'll love him all the same. The genius of this movie is also its biggest flaw, the love and respect it has for what it's based on. If you're expecting this to be exactly like the cartoons in terms of the manic energy and constant crazy stuff on the screen, you're in for a rude awakening. This movie opens with the sound of thunder roaring and waves crashing as a single figure on a tiny dinghy floats in the distance. What is this, an A24 film? Like, why is it so freaking serious? What is happening? Then we meet Popeye, and he's not exactly the bundle of joy you'd expect. Robin Williams plays him as this shy, muttering fish out of water, see pun intended, with a big heart and even bigger arms. There's a real sweetness to this guy, a vulnerability that's totally unexpected and totally brilliant. You're meeting Popeye for the first time, and Robin Williams is already perfection. His impression is flawless, of course, but his performance is even better. The film looks great already, I should point out, seeing as they literally built the town of Sweet Haven as a set in Malta, and it's so cool looking. You forget it's a set pretty quickly and completely accept it as a real place with real people living there, even if they are one wacky bunch. Then the music starts and, again, your expectations are not met at all. The film is teasing you with these slower, kind of groovy songs, these anthems that are very simple in terms of the lyrics and everything, but also really goddamn good. Harry Nilsson's tunes are bizarre but catchy as hell. And you know what? These songs should be bizarre. I mean, just look at these people, they're total freaks.
You owe me an apology.
There's a dude obsessed with hamburgers, a guy chasing his hat, a lady called Olive Oyl, one guy wants an apology from everybody all the time. Bluto's a freaking caveman. Obviously the songs, if there's gonna be any, need to be a little bit out there. But it's the film's reluctance to give the goods right away that makes it a film worth paying attention to. Because one thing this film understands very well is what we want to see. What we want to see, literally everybody, all the Popeye fans, what we want to see from this movie is Popeye eating his spinach and kicking Bluto's ass as the classic theme song is playing. The movie knows that, and it'll give it to you. It's just gonna tease you a little bit first. It's gonna make you earn it. You're gonna learn about these characters, you're gonna fall in love with them all over again, and then, only then, will you get what you want. Some people will find this frustrating, 100%, and I mean, I get it. But the way in which this big tease is done is so clever that I can't help but feel like Robert Altman was working on a different level here. Olive Oyl is introduced to us as this pretentious, vain, tough cookie, which is also kind of unexpected, at least if it's the cartoons you know best. But all of a sudden, she reveals herself to be the wobbly, clumsy goofball we know and love. And Shelley Duvall, it has to be said, is freaking out of this world in this movie. Fresh off the set of The Shining, you can tell she was motivated. To this day, I can't picture a better casting choice. She is perfection. She is Olive Oyl.
There's nothing left to say. What do you think?
Like I said, the movie understands we want to see Popeye get mad and get in a fight, so it gives us crumbs of this here and there. We see him in the classic costumes, we hear Popeye's theme a little bit here, we meet Bluto, it's all a big build-up. But I know exactly what some of you are thinking now. This is bullshit. Why does it take the entire movie to give you the goods? What a ripoff. That's a fair complaint, honestly. But that's also what makes this film so interesting. It knows that once you give the audience what it wants, there's nowhere to go but down. So it keeps the good stuff for the end, just when you had given up on maybe getting it. Think about it. Why is food so important in this movie? Olive doesn't eat, everybody's stuffing themselves around Popeye, who is constantly stopped from eating. Our heroes are surrounded by greed everywhere. Even Olive becomes a victim of her own greed at one point and loses Popeye's respect, which is pretty heartbreaking. Well, seeing as the whole film builds up to Popeye finally eating his spinach, I think it's fair to say that we, the audience, are the ones who are actually being denied their meal. We are the people of Sweet Haven who are singing about food. We are the greedy ones who want to have our meal right now. The first third of the movie is a masterpiece of misdirection and tease. We are given crumb after crumb, drip by drip, and before you know it, we're getting one hell of a unique Popeye experience. Popeye's story is a sad one. He was abandoned by his father and he's trying to find him, but no one gives a crap about his story. Which skillfully, playfully points out that we, the audience, may be the ones who are taking his story for granted. But Popeye doesn't need you to care, he's a tough guy, he can take it. He's the underdog, but he's no pushover either. In this scene, he kicks ass and proclaims the iconic phrase, "I am what I am," both proudly and angrily with a certain level of frustration. This is a man fighting for himself, fighting for respect, and ultimately love. Speaking of which, you know who does care about this story? Olive, of course. Olive is the only one who hangs out with Popeye and listens to what he has to say. She's on her way to meet Bluto, she's in a rush, but she takes her time to get to know Popeye, and he's low-key moved by that. These two have a really cute connection in this movie, and there are several beautiful songs that help make it the most adorable movie romance. Shelley Duvall sings "He Needs Me" with so much innocence, it's genuinely sweet. Salen is a duet with a lot of heart as well. You're rooting for this family, including Sweet Pea, the baby that was left on their doorstep. And you care about Popeye's long-lost dad too, even if he is a jerk and his scenes are the most boring ones in the movie. But Popeye is an outsider. He just showed up to this town and broke off the relationship that Bluto had with Olive Oyl. No wonder Bluto's mad as hell. Though to be fair, he was always mad. And he's large. And mean. And yes, there are songs about him being large. And mean.
You know what I mean?
Family's a big deal in this movie. It's what Popeye really wants, but it's not gonna be a picnic because it's never easy getting everything you want. Which, yeah, relates back again to us really wanting to see him eat his spinach, but only getting what we want when we really deserve it, or at least when we're ready for it. What makes Popeye so instantly likable and different than the people in this town is his moral compass. This is a genuinely sweet guy. He's wounded by his past, both physically and emotionally, but he makes no apologies for being who he is, and he always stands up for what's right. When it comes to taking care of Sweet Pea, he doesn't hesitate and protects the child from his enemies, but also the people he cares about, like Olive and his father, who are both good people at heart, but clearly not the best at making good decisions all the time. Robin Williams is so good in this movie that he makes you feel like Popeye is a real person, like someone you can actually feel bad for, you know? This all helps make his blossoming into the spinning-fisted badass all the more satisfying. By the time he eats his spinach, you are 200% rooting for the guy and his family. Olive has her own character arc in the movie. She's basically on the edge of turning into just another Sweet Haven douchebag, like this dude. God, I hate that guy. I mean, he's kind of fun at the beginning, mostly because of this line.
I would gladly pay you Tuesday for a hamburger today.
But by the end, you hate the guy because he kidnapped a child, for one, and he got paid in hamburgers, which is messed up and hilariously unhinged. A cool thing this movie does, which is also unexpected, is present Bluto initially as a kind of charming guy. Sure, he's large and intimidating and clearly the bad guy, but look at him in this scene. He gets terrifying soon after, but right there, he's in his element. People love him. Even Olive is genuinely like, you know what, at least he's there and he's mine. In some ways, this is really Olive's story and about what she might become. On the one hand, Bluto, a mean, greedy, grown-up baby, and on the other hand, an imperfect but fundamentally good person, Popeye. She pays the price for stepping into the path of greed, as she spends the last third of the film either wrestling an octopus or stuck in this thing. Shelley Duvall's performance is masterful in this movie. Wobbling around making cartoon noises, singing her little heart out, not quite reaching those keys, but adorably almost getting there. Her songs are genuinely so cute, and while some people will hate her singing, I think it's perfect for that character. It adds a vulnerability to Olive, which is kind of important if you're gonna see this character, this weirdo, as a real person. Popeye is so freaking fundamentally kind and good that even though his father treated him like crap, he still accepts and loves this new son who is not even his own, and still loves his dad despite everything. Family is what Popeye wants, and he will fight for it because boy does he deserve it. While the movie stays far away, not always, but mostly from the manic energy of the cartoons, it perfectly captures the vibe of the comic strips and Popeye as a whole. It's like this movie knows that this is gonna be the only legit Popeye film ever made, and by God, it's gonna make it count. There is no other movie that feels like this movie. It really is one of a kind. Some might say that's for the best, and again, I get it. This is a strange experience and not everyone's gonna go for it. It's not gonna grab everyone because the film itself challenges you right away to sign up for its surprisingly layered cartoon journey. And okay, maybe the movie's not always genius, but its approach to adapting a children's cartoon, I would say, is really inspiring. This movie takes not only its story and characters seriously, but also its audience, which is not to say it's not funny, it definitely is. You might have to squint your ears here and there to capture some of the jokes under all the noise, but trust me, they're in there. Robert Altman treats this adaptation with so much heart and so much respect, you almost want to go, it's not that serious, dude. It's freaking Popeye, for God's sake. But think about it, the cartoons exist. If that's the experience you're looking for, it's already out there. This is a genuine attempt to flesh this idea out. All these characters, see what makes them tick, and pinpoint exactly why these characters are so iconic and so utterly lovable. And personally, I think this movie kinda nailed it. This movie's goal is to remind us what it's like to be a child, but not in any conventional way. It understands that it's difficult for adults to feel the way they felt watching a cartoon as a child. It's just not the same, which is why this movie is talking to the adults that we've become, and attempts to sell us on Popeye all over again, so that by the end we fully get it. We feel what we felt back when we were kids, the pure joy of sitting there experiencing total magic. That charming chaos and the pure joy that your favorite cartoon can bring to you when you're a kid. It's not easy, but that movie did that. And it's very special, in my opinion. Alright, let's eat this thing. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I'm strung to the finish, cause I eats me spinach. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I'm one tough gazookas, which hates all palookas. When I ain't on the up and square, I biffs 'em and buffs 'em and always outroughs 'em, and none of 'em gets nowheres. If anyone dares to risk me fisk, it's buff and it's swum, understand? So keep good behavior, that's your one lifesaver. We're Popeye the Sailor Man. All together now, I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I'm Popeye the Sailor Man. I'm struck to the finish, cause I eats me spinach. I'm Popeye, woo! I'm Popeye the Sailor Man.
What kind of song is that? It's kind of a weird interpretation there, okay.